Welcome back to the show. We're getting ready for another week of NFL football. Mackenzie Brooks back here in studio. Before we get to biggest surprises and disappointments, give us sort of the prism, the lens that we are entering this conversation.
Right. So there's obviously been some teams this season in the NFL exceeding expectations or falling very, very short. And we can all sit here and say that, but it's trying to quantify how much better or how much worse these teams are than we thought. So when we can take the odds makers lines, go inside the lines and realize how much better these teams performing than odds makers are implying week in and week out. They're setting these lines a certain way. They're adjusting for whatever's happening in the season, but some of them just aren't adjusting enough for how good or how bad these teams have become. So we kind of put together a list of the top five, really, really exciting teams above expectation, the top five below. So these are our teams most exceeding the expectations of odds makers here. These are all teams that are around one win ahead than we thought they were going to be at this season, or excuse me, that's part of the season. The Jags leading the way, plus 34% here, exceeding expectations. I don't find this necessarily that sustainable. Their turnover margin is awesome, and I'm here to give them their flowers, Jacksonville. But what happened against the Chiefs feels a little bit more like luck than what I'm seeing with some of these other teams here. You talk about the Bucs. This is sustainable to me, given the injuries and what they're doing without the guys that they don't have right now. And you think about the Lions as well. This is our number one power ranked team in our model right now. They're just getting better. I mean, they've created a super monster running back with the two running backs they have. Their turnover margin, everything about this team has gotten so much better. So this is a team I think is only going to continue to exceed expectations. They sit at the bottom of the list of the best right now, but I could see them taking over higher up here. The Steelers squeak in here because they're benefiting from other teams shooting themselves in the foot, right? If New England did not have all those turnovers that were self-inflicted, we would not see the Steelers necessarily exceeding expectations right now, but Aaron Rodgers does live on this list currently.
So just to button up what you're talking about, Jacksonville, 14 takeaways through 5 games that leads the league. Not sustainable unless they get the offense going to get those numbers back up, and maybe they can justify that 34%. So those are the surprises. What does the ITL team say about disappointments? Yeah,
I mean, obviously you're looking at the Ravens. And again, this number is adjusted for who's in, who's out. This is about how odds makers are setting lines, and they're still just performing really, really, really under the bar. It's a tough situation for the Ravens that we'll get into later. The Jets are spending as much money on their defense, and they still stink. So that's just really disappointing for them. Miami's always going to be Miami in that spot for us. The Raiders now move to second to last in our power rankings right now. Not honestly a spot we thought they'd be at this point in the season. The Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, this is a tough one. Obviously, everyone's surprised by them right now, but when you're 11-0 in one-score games last season, the other end of the bell curve eventually is going to be to lose some of these one-score games. So I could see them squeaking out of this eventually, but this is definitely where we're living in the most disappointing seasons so far.
Yeah, we'll get to the reigning AFC champs in just a second. Let's bring in Danny Kanell to join the conversation with Kens. And let's start with the Baltimore Ravens, who, Danny, are 1-4, yet if you look at the odds board, they're still the favorite to win the division.
That to me makes no sense whatsoever. And I get there with health issues, and they were out so many guys, 6 Pro Bowlers last week when it got really ugly. But a lot of those players were on the field when they were giving up a boatload of points to a lot of teams that weren't very good. That they just, their defense has been a massive disappointment. Derrick Henry's fumbling issues been well documented. Those are another something that you would look at and say, all right, is there something more serious going up here? He's getting up in years, and they're asking him to carry a significant portion of this workload. I get it because the preseason expectations were so strong, but at some point, it becomes just too much of an uphill climb to come back from. And when you're sitting here so far behind the 8 ball and you do have injuries that are mounting, I just wonder if these players, when they come back, if they're going to be able to flip that switch and become a preseason Super Bowl favorite where I had them. They were my Super Bowl pick. I thought they were going to take that big step forward this season in the postseason where Lamar Jackson was going to silence all his critics. Instead, they're falling way short of expectations. So I think this is a little bit too optimistic for anybody to think that the Ravens are just going to turn this thing around all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'm with you here. 2 things you want to mention. A, talking about the AFC North odds here, you could literally sprinkle a little bit on every other team in the division and end up profiting here. Personally, I'd take the Steelers here, but if you want to just sprinkle, there's a version of the story where anybody but the Ravens win. You're still coming out green here. So I think that's a phenomenal bet at this point in the season. The issue with the Ravens is, obviously, you're going to get better when 7 of your 8 best players are healthy and get back on the field. But there were issues before that, issues with Derrick Henry. If Lamar Jackson is not able to be the 100% run threat that he can be, defenses will not give him the time of day, and then Derrick Henry cannot be Derrick Henry. I've always said how guys like Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley can continue to have strong seasons because they have mobile quarterbacks and threats next to them. That's not going to be the situation even when Lamar comes back, and who knows when he's going to come back based off his history. So there was issues with this before. When you don't have Madubuike, who's literally the nucleus of that defense, when he's not there, he's the heart and soul of it that can make Roquan Smith look good, make all of their other guys look good. Without him, who's not coming back, this defense has a million problems outside of just a few injuries we're looking at right now. So take anybody else in the AFC North. I know the Steelers are dancing around plus 115.
Yeah.
We give them an 81% chance, so that might be the best bet here.
Sprinkle a little arbitrage on the AFC North that we have going on right now. So these two teams, speaking of the Ravens and Chiefs, met a couple weeks ago when they were both 1-2. The Chiefs were able to come away with a victory, but 0-3 this year in one-score games. Conversely, Danny, last year they were a perfect 12-0. When you're winning the one-score games, they call it championship DNA. When you're losing the one-score games, DK, what do you call that?
Oh, man. So I think this team lacks the urgency they need, the urgency that they had earlier in their career. And I know Chris Jones took so much criticism for his lack of effort on the final play against Jacksonville, but it kind of encapsulates a mindset I think that the Chiefs had that, we'll be fine. Like, I don't have to make that play now. We can flip that switch. And last year, I thought some of the criticism were deserved of this team, and yet there they go, 15-2, and they make it all the way to the Super Bowl, and then they got exposed. I do think they're getting exposed somewhat as getting older, as being able to not be as explosive on the offensive side of the ball, and a defense which is starting to, become a little bit more of an issue for them. I think Ken's made a great point, because the other night it did feel lucky that Jacksonville won that game, but that does come into play, and you did have opportunities to step up there, and you had Patrick Mahomes with a pick six to one in the red zone where he's just a little bit careless with the football, and it's something we've seen. Again, it kind of speaks to a lackadaisical mindset, and it happens when you're a dynasty like the Chiefs have been. I just have significant questions about them. Now, I trust them more than I trust the Ravens, but I still look at this team. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. I think they'll still be a playoff team, but I don't look at them as a Super Bowl contender.
Last time they were 2-3, they finished 12-5. We saw the standings and the division odds right now. Chargers have come down a bit. Still don't know about Denver. What's the Casey outlook?
I always hesitate to be like, all right, the downfall's starting, right? This is finally the time. I'm someone who's cashing in, plus money, Chiefs not to make the playoff tickets multiple years and hoping they hit, and they typically never do. With all of that said, I generally do believe we're at that part. You said 12-0 in one-score games. Like, at some point, you do hit the other end of that bell curve. Do I think they're going to go 0-8 in one-score games? No, but do I think they're going to have a really hard time finding that luck factor? I wouldn't call Patrick Mahomes luck. I wouldn't call him a coin flip, but I will say it's really hard for him to have success with what he has right now. Isaiah Pacheco is not the same guy that he was before his injury. You have a rookie with Brashard Smith. You have Kareem Hunt, who is never exactly the star. Yes, you get Rashee Rice back, but what they're getting with Tyquan Thornton is obviously not the level of that. But the bridge and the gap you're going to see when Rashee Rice comes back, and maybe we see less Tyquan Thornton, is not going to be this amazing, let's turn the whole season around situation. So I genuinely, it sounds silly, I just think we're finally hitting the other end of a bell curve to make an average here.
Okay, so we talked about two disappointing teams. Now we're going to go two surprising teams. I'm going to give you one each. Kans, I'll start with you because you talked about sort of this like bell curve that comes down. You were still bullish and think that the Bucs are sustainable despite all these narrow victories for Tampa Bay. Give me the projection forward here for Baker Mayfield and company.
Yeah, I think sometimes their defensive stats get a little bit dinged because they find themselves in shootout situations because their offense scores so quickly, and I think that's a great spot to be. But like per play statistics, they're stopping the run really, really well too. And now you basically have forced yourself into 3 wide receiver ones now that you have Emeka Egbuka becoming what he has become. So when they do all get healthy and you have Bucky Irving, that number and that exceeding percent chance expectation we have, I think only will get bigger here, especially the parity you're seeing all over the NFL, but especially in the NFC too.
Danny, if I turn you into day trading, Danny, here for the Indianapolis Colts, are you still buying stock in Daniel Jones and company, or would you like to sell high right now after their good start?
I would probably sell high, as much as I would be rooting for this story to continue. And I think it's been a great one. And we've seen some reclamation projects at quarterback, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, who we're just talking about, like have success. And clearly he's playing a lot better than last year. I think it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors when you start looking at the teams that they've beaten, like Miami, who hasn't lived up to the expectations. Denver was a really good win. Game was really tight, though. If Bo Nix doesn't, throw a pick there late, Denver probably wins that one. Tennessee, Vegas, those aren't exactly a gauntlet of opponents that they have to go through. As the schedule gets harder, as the season goes on, I would tend to think that Indianapolis will get exposed somewhat. I still think they're a playoff team, but now considering the run that Jacksonville's made, I would almost lean towards Jacksonville, as I believe in them a little bit more than I do the Colts. So I would sell high right here with the Colts.
I need one chance just to argue, Danny, because I haven't done it yet. A, I would take the AFC South winner to be the Colts here. B, I think Daniel Jones, he's gone from a 68% pass completion with the Giants to now 71. It's not something crazy here. It's because you have a healthy, awesome tight end who's has 80% completion of your passes. You have a healthy, awesome running back next to you. That is what the difference is. It's not Daniel Jones becoming God. He's doing things he's always been able to do, and he hasn't even used his legs yet that much. He doesn't even use them every week. So that's something we haven't even unlocked. As long as his running back is healthy and his tight end is healthy, I think everything they're doing right now is sustainable.
Smell a little pizza bet between you two. All right. Ken's DK guys certainly appreciate it. Taking a look at surprises and disappointments. Here's a look at our slate here in the NFL. 3 games in the 1 Eastern window. Another doubleheader at 4:25 on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.